Dr. Jeremy Weiss here. I'm founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders and how they overcome big challenges in life and business. We have today Rick Cesari. This is part 2. We had so much that we covered. There's so much more to cover, and Rick is back, so I'm really appreciative. He's gracious to join us again. You know, he's one of the legends and pioneers of direct response marketing with his many successful infomercials. He's helped sell more than $2 billion worth of product and launched over 30 brands, including Sonicare, Oxiclean, George Foreman Grill, Juiceman, GoPro camera, and many more. He's the author of Buy Now, and as I describe it, like I said, he helps turn great products into $100 million companies and household names. Rick, thanks for coming back.
Hey, good morning. It's great to see you again.
So Rick, I asked this, it's Inspired Insider, and I always ask, what's been the lowest moment? And then how you push through those tough times.
I've had a couple when in the late 80s, before I moved out to Seattle, when I got to my start with that real estate guy, I got into a legal battle with him, and I didn't have much resources, and I had to declare bankruptcy. When I moved to Seattle, I basically came out here with 2 suitcases. I had borrowed money from my mom to help fight some of these legal battles. I was $50,000 in debt and came out to Seattle and didn't have a job, wasn't working a profession, and kind of just started from scratch. And that was a pretty low time.
That sounds really painful. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. And, it was just, you're actually in a position where, at that point, failure is not an option, and you just have to do whatever you need to do to start, making life better. And so that was one point, and then another point for me.
What was your mindset at the time when you go back to that time? Because you say you just have to do it, but that's sometimes easier said than done. What was your mindset that allowed you to do that?
Yeah, we talked in the first part of the interview that I was really big in reading motivational books and success books. Yeah. And I've always been a very optimistic person, and the glass is half full, not half empty. And even then, I just knew that I could be successful. And I think there's a turn, you can hit a point where you can give up, okay, and let life take its course. For me, I just stayed, I just would read about other people's success. I would read motivational books, and positive thinking, I guess, is, and you hear a lot about that, but just really that type of optimistic outlook, positive thinking. I've since learned that a lot of times things are cyclical. There's going to be ups and downs. I think one of the favorite sayings I had from a mentor, things are never as good as they seem, and things are never as bad as they seem. And I just knew that I had an inner belief that things would get better, and that I could help make them get better. Yeah. So,
and you were about to mention there was another one.
Another one was more. I've always been involved in health. I've always eaten healthy, and but my dad passed away when he was relatively young, 45 years old. But he had a bad lifestyle. He smoked 2 packs of Camels a day, ate a lot of red meat, had lots of stress. And he had to, like a lot of people at that time, died of heart attack, cardiac disease.
Sorry to hear that. Yeah.
Really careful about my health, and would always go get my cholesterol checked. Ate really healthy. I for a long period I was a vegetarian for a long period. I'm not right now, but just was really focused on health. So one day I would always get a yearly screening, and I went and got this plaque screening where you're fully clothed, you lay on a table, and they run something over you. And I remember I was eating dinner, and I get a call, and it was a doctor that had kind of worked with this thing. And he goes, "Well, I need to talk to you. There's something we found that is unusual. We need to do some more tests." So I came back in. It turned out I had a aneurysm on my ascending aorta.
Holy cow!
That was 5.5 millimeters in diameter. Like if you picture a garden hose and it's the big bubble.
Yeah.
And they call it the I don't know, the silent killer. Or
if that
something.
bursts, you're dead. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so the protocol at the time was mine was at 5.5, and it was like, okay, the way you fix this is open heart surgery, which has risks in itself. So
Sure.
they would monitor it and say, okay, if it looks like it's growing rapidly, we have to operate right away.
Right.
And if it gets to a certain size, and there's 5.8 or 5 whatever, we should operate because there's a risk of it carrying
Ballooning out, yeah.
yeah, ballooning out. And so I actually monitored it for a year, but I was really frustrated because here I am, I lead a really healthy lifestyle,
Yeah.
everything's going good. And the doctor was saying, this could be genetic. There's lots of reasons that cause it. So this was like 3 years ago, I had to go in and have open heart surgery where they, the main,
Wow.
the big thing, pull your chest open.
Oh.
And so they fixed the problem. It turned out they fixed that and then put a new heart valve in.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, all this stuff, and it turned out that might have been the cause of it was they said I was born with a bicuspid valve, and so that might have helped cause it.
There was a
and so,
genetic thing going on.
Yeah, the amazing thing was, when the surgery was done, the recovery period, again, it was a low thing. Whenever if you're an active person and you're out of it for like 6 weeks. I mean, and the hard part is when, the chest part is healing because they crack open your ribs, and that's the painful part. The internal part, all the work they do on your heart, that's good from immediately, and that's there's a little bit of healing, but there's no pain involved in that. So you're kind of bedridden, and
yeah, they saw you. I mean, they saw you open.
Exactly. They basically take your chest cavity and your ribs and go like this, and that's what they do is then they sew that all back together. It's kind of painful,
Yes.
but that was kind of another low point, just because. But really, it makes you look at life too, and it's like life is short, and go do the things you want to do because you never know. It's recognize that life is short and it could be taken away at any time.
So what did you change after that? Realizing that, I mean, you just had your chest cavity cracked open, and
Yeah, it's interesting. I did kind of change work a little bit. Kind of made the company a little smaller. Just wanted to basically freed up some more time because I really enjoy. You can tell I enjoy what I do. I love doing this, but I was working a lot. But that's not what caused me to get sick. I mean, right. I don't think there was a connection there. But I did realize that I didn't need to slow down a little bit and just really little smaller company, just more time to do some of the things, hobbies and different things I like to do. I like to travel and things like that. So that's the biggest. Yeah.
Well, thank God. First of all, you lived healthy because it probably would have been worse. And second, that you had the testing done, that they found it before it burst. So what's been the proudest moment?
I guess the proudest moment. I mean, there's a personal side and a business side. The personal side is really just watching my daughter Anna grow up, and she graduated from University of Washington last year, and she's over in Uganda right now, doing some service work, building schools and houses and things like that, and helping with the malaria program. And I think that's kind of what she wants to do for a living, is do kind of relief work and mission work, like that type of thing. And so it's been great watching her grow up. And on the business side, it's like. And
then before on the personal, you've climbed some major mountains.
Oh, that was kind of just a hobby, and I got into it because remember I was doing it. If you live in Seattle, it's an outdoor culture, and REI stores here, and you wake up every morning and you see Mount Rainier, and some people it's like they could care less. For me, when I first moved to Seattle, I would look out the window and I'd see that. And someday I'm going to climb that, just because it's there. You know what I mean? And it took me a few years to get around to doing it, but then I did, and I kind of got bit by a climbing bug and wanted to do it more and more, and that became a hobby. And my goal was actually. And this was before I had the open heart surgery. And so I had this, I didn't know I had this condition. And I think it affected, obviously, my health somewhat with a leaky valve like that. And I didn't know it at the time. But my goal was there was something where if you were into mountain climbing, you could do what they call the 7 summits. And it's the highest mountain on each continent. Oh, wow. And that would include Mount Everest. And so I started to do that. And I went over to Russia and climbed Mount Elbrus, which is the highest mountain on the European continent, and I had a trip to Kilimanjaro. I was going to do that would be the highest mountain on in the African continent, and then the one that was, and I'd climbed a lot of other smaller mountains in the Northwest and the Grand Tetons and the highest mountains in Mexico, which get up to 19,000 feet. Most of them volcanoes, and then for me, the big one that I climbed was Mount McKinley in Alaska, and that was a really interesting. It was a 3 week like an expedition.
Sounds dangerous.
To get prepared for something like Mount Everest or whatever, and then coming down from them that's when I kind of found out I had the health issue. It didn't bother me on the mountain. I made it to the top, but once the thing happened with my heart, it kind of derailed the mountain climbing thing. But that was kind of a hobby that I did for probably about 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
And I did when we climbed Mount Rainier for the first time, we did it with Joel Apple from the Oxiclean.
Oh, wow.
type thing. Yeah. So that was because he was from Colorado and he was into hiking and climbing and wanted to do it. So that was a fun thing.
So on the professional side, what's been proud moment?
To me, just if you look at all the ones I've done and everything else, I still have the best memories of the juiceman business because I feel like it not only was an area that I was interested in, we built a successful business, but I really felt like we really helped change the way people look at their diet. A lot of people, I mean, back then we weren't the original juicing people, but it did start if you look around at juicing now,
movement,
it's everywhere. I mean, it's like, it's more bottled juices, fresh cold pressed juices, but it's everywhere. And I think that one for me was my favorite because it was the first really big success, but I also was, it was my product. It was the owner of the company. I wasn't doing it for someone else. And it was a category that I just loved and continue to love. I mean, anything that has to do with health and nutrition, I'm always interested in. So that was to me my favorite, I would say.
Yeah. Rick, this has been absolutely fantastic. Tell people where they should go to check you out. What are you working on lately?
Yeah. So anyway, really interesting thing we're working on now, but I'll tell you in a second. But you can go to our website, which is cesaridirect.com, CESARI direct.com. And there's a way of getting in contact with us right on the website. You can see some of the projects we talked about, but also so we're working for some fun projects. So anyway, we just finished an infomercial with Dr. Phil's wife, Robin McGraw. It's a skincare line, but their son Jay McGraw, he's the executive producer for the show called The Doctors that you see on TV. And so he's interested. He read my book and he's interested in direct marketing, and he's really entrepreneurial guy. And they're coming out with, and we're working on ads and running them right now, a startup company called Doctor on Demand. And it's an app that you can download on your phone, and you don't have to have insurance. And there's different offers, but the basic is for $40, anyone could call up and talk to a doctor, an MD, for 15 minutes, and they have the ability to prescribe over the phone certain medications like antibiotics, different ones. And there's different categories. And what I want to do, my thing is that's going to be very successful. There was just a headline out that Richard Branson invested in the company, and it's going to be huge because it's kind of the future of where I think healthcare is going to go.
Maybe very accessible healthcare. Yeah.
What I want to bring to the table is the natural part of that. Naturopathic doctors and chiropractic doctors to be able to give people that option of being able to call up and do that type of medicine in addition to the regular doctors. So it's one where it's exciting because the technology is now available. Healthcare is changing. I think it's going to be a wave of the future, and it's a fun one another fun one to work on that helps people and benefits people.
Yeah, and people definitely need to check out the book Buy Now. Also, I listen, like I said, 3 to 6 books per week, and I told someone like when I first read or listened to it. I've listened to it 3 times already, and it's definitely one of my favorites of all time. And
that's great.
yeah,
Thank you for.
I'm not just saying that because you're in front of me. What's that?
You told me when we first talked that you had 3 or 4 or a couple ideas for new books.
I have some titles written down of your future books. Yes.
Okay.
So I'll have to share those with you.
Okay. I would love to.
Because I took notes as I'm, I try and listen at the computer so I can take notes on it. And yeah, I definitely have a lot of notes and a lot of ideas for a lot of future books if that's the route you want to go. So my last question, Rick, is what's some of the craziest things that have come across your desk? You probably get so many ideas and people pitching you. Some of the crazy things and maybe some of the things you passed on that you wish you would have.
Part of the fun/frustrating part of this business is dealing with inventors, because inventors are unique people, and I don't know if you've had that experience. They always think that they have the next GoPro, and no matter what the product is, and they're a lot of times very protective. They think it's like the next big seller. I mean, huge, success. And some of them are really weird things. So 2 of them that I remember, and like you said, I get a lot of them. But somebody, and it's always a red flag to me when someone calls or emails and they're very secretive. And I got this great product, and I want to share it with you, but I don't want you to steal the idea. And I go, I don't steal ideas, and then we can sign a non-disclosure. So we went through this whole process with this guy. And basically, he sent us. I go, we signed a non-disclosure. Can you send us a prototype? He wouldn't tell us what it was. And I open up a box, and there's a hanger with 2 clothespins on it. And I go, what's this thing? And he goes, well, it's a new way for doctors to look at X-rays. And he goes, I'm an X-ray technician, and I think this will. I mean, it's really. I mean, believe it, that's really silly. I mean, I just like some of the stuff you get. Then there was one where I forget the name of it, but again, it was an inventor, and it was a device that automatically raised and lowered the toilet seat, which obviously is a common problem, and you think it would sell really well, but it functionally it didn't really work. But it was just a weird thing. And those are kind of like, to me, like that would be like a gimmick product that I can't really get behind, but it's just amusing. Then one of the funniest was these 2 guys called our office, and they were talking to us, and they had a product, and again, they wanted to tell us about it, and it turned out they were hunters, and they were calling from Minnesota, and they had a product called, what's the name of it? And it's called Seasoned Shot, and I go, what's that? So they go, well, what we've done is we've taken shotgun shells, and instead of pellets, we've put in like spices. And so when you actually shoot the bird, they're already spiced up, and this is a real product. And that was one of the fun. I mean, and they were 100%. Sometimes, like, you just laugh. Sometimes it's like you just want to laugh at some of the stuff you hear. But they it's just Seasoned Shot, and I think they actually.
It's got a good name, actually.
Yeah, you can actually find it at some hunting stores now. But they, can we make a commercial for this? People will buy it, and I go, I don't think I'm interested in doing that. But that's a pretty funny one.
That you wish that anyone that you passed on that you wish you wouldn't have.
Yeah, let me think about. There have been definitely. I'm just drawing a blank right now.
Like yesterday,
I like to think about them probably because it was like, it was a good opportunity. Right. Not so much from making a money standpoint, but just a fun product to market. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one.
Interesting. Like I talked to yesterday. I interviewed Nolan Bushnell, founder of Atari. Oh, yeah. And we were talking about he got offered a third of Apple for $50,000 and passed it up.
Yep. So and I've had opportunity. Yeah, that's one. That's probably.
I'm sure there's some like that for you
somewhere. I don't know if it was in Steve Jobs' book or I remember reading that story.
Walter Isaacson, maybe the biography.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
But he confirmed it. He said. He passed it up.
That must have been fascinating to talk to. I mean, some of the people you talk to, it's great. It must be really, really fascinating for you.
It is. It's amazing. As I figured, there's got to be.
Do you see any common threads?
Common
Do you see
threads?
any? Yeah, I mean, a lot of times when I'm interviewing people and things like that, again, it has to be in a certain subject, but you interview a lot of successful people. Any commonality or things you see, or is it just a lot of differences?
I,
And
you know, that's a good question. Some of the commonalities I see are kind of what you say, that positive outlook and that
yeah,
perseverance.
yeah,
No matter what, they're so confident. And
yes,
that's why I always ask the question, how do you know whether to kill an idea or keep going with it? Because a lot of the successful people, they're just pushing through. Like you said, you go
yeah.
bankrupt, you don't hear
Yeah,
about
well,
those
it's the
challenges.
old Will Rogers saying, if you're in a hole, if you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. You know what I mean? But then you balance that with, okay, never give up. And I think
Right.
that can have, and a lot of times you read about entrepreneurial people or hear about them that have spectacular failures, and they won't give up until absolutely everything explodes. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes people are fortunate that that doesn't happen, but a lot of entrepreneurs have that in their background. Like I told you about Nick Woodman, and his first internet company just blowing
Yeah.
up, and he lost like $4 million of investor money. And everyone, I think a lot of successful entrepreneurs have that in their background, that they really don't give up, and the market forces them, to stop. But then they don't give up. They go, okay, what's the next idea, type of
Right.
thing.
And it's almost relieving in a way,
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
because and that's why I like to ask about those challenges and those mistakes, because we only hear about the big successes. We
Oh,
don't
yeah,
hear about
absolutely.
the things that didn't go well, or we don't hear about, I went bankrupt, I had two suitcases and I had to borrow money from my mom. That's actually motivating.
Yeah.
People like, I was
Yeah.
here and I just persevered and built it back up to what it is now.
Yeah. It's very, the more you talk to people, you probably see this too. Um, there's very few like overnight successes. People usually pay their dues,
Yes.
and then something becomes a big success, but it
Yeah.
isn't just right out of the can like that.
Yes, and
So
that is what that's what the media, I think, portrays a lot of times, is it just, yeah, overnight success. But Billy Mays was doing all of those
oh,
shows and just
Jake
practicing
Nordich,
his
same
pitch.
thing. Those guys
Yeah,
spent years and years and years
yeah,
on the fair circuit, pitching, and like I said, in health food stores, paid their dues, and then when the time was right, they
yeah.
capitalized on it.
That's what I
So
love to hear. That's this your
yeah,
stories. That's what I love to hear, and that's what people, I think, love to listen to. So, Rick, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much again for part two.
yeah, it's been fun. I look forward to hearing back the interview. So that'll be
Yes.
great.
Thank you,
Thank
Rick.
you. Good experience.
Fantastic.
All right, bye now.